Hello, everybody. We're getting ready to take a journey. We're going all the way to the country of Brazil. And we're going to take a look at the life and legacy of Antonio Carlos Jobim. He was Portuguese, but was born in Brazil. He was educated partly in Europe and partly in Brazil. He was born and raised in Rio. His father was a doctor, and so they were very upper middle class. His father was actually physician to the emperor at that time. So they were a well-respected family. The mother and father had two kids, one boy, one girl. Unfortunately, the marriage dissolved, and the mother took her two children and left behind the splendor and opulence and financial support of the well-to-do father. She eventually married for a second time. And this was a very consequential marriage because even though the second husband was not as affluent, he did nurture the artistic side of Antonio's nature. He even bought him his very first piano. His father, his natural father, did not support these things because as a physician he probably thought that the arts and music were beneath his family station. At any rate, where they moved to was close to the water and a beach area known as Ipanema. Young Carlos, or Tom as he was known, loved this area and would return to it very, very often and would use it as a subject for one of his most popular songs, The Girl from Ipanema, which won several Grammys and has been recorded over 250 times by various artists, both Brazilian, classical, and jazz. Now, as young Carlos grew up, because he did have meager income, he started performing on piano in the 40s in various little beach bars and things like that, not just to expand his career, but also to make some money. It was like that. It was the mother of invention is necessity. So it was also necessary for him to do these things as well for money, as well as to expand what was going to be an outstanding career. His musical influences were obviously all of the native Brazilian composers, but then classical composers such as Debussy and Ravel, and in terms of classical composers in his native Brazil, Hector Villa-Lobos was his primary influence, and he would later say his greatest influence. He did study music with a German theorist and composer who had moved to Brazil from Germany in the early 40s. And it was through this gentleman that he discovered modern harmonic technique and 12-tone technique as well, chromaticism. And that would inform his harmonic and melodic inclinations as a composer and as a performer for the rest of his life. And it is probably that connection that made him so attractive to jazz musicians. Somewhere around 1958, a young guitarist named Gilberto, last name Gilberto, recorded a couple of Jobim songs on his first album. The album was very popular, and one of the songs on the album was Desafinado. This launched Jobim into the public eye as very, very popular and very respected. and also launched Mr. Gilberto's career as well. By 1958, Tom is beginning to get international recognition as a result of this Gilberto performance. And by 1962, he has his own Carnegie Hall concert, which really awakened the eyes and ears of many jazz musicians because they were infatuated with his harmonies and the chromaticism in his melodies, which, as far as I'm concerned, would have been kind of from the same branch of the jazz harmonic tree as the work of Bill Evans. So he was in the right place at the right time with the right stuff. Later, somewhere around 1964, 65, he recorded one of the most consequential albums ever, Getz Gilberto, where he paired the young wife of the guitarist Gilberto with Stan Getz, and they recorded a series of Jobim compositions that lit the bossa nova fire all over America and indeed all over the world. As I said before, Girl from Ipanema from that album was one of the most popular songs ever to come out of Brazil. And this album won several Grammys, several nominations, and helped to catapult the career of Stan Getz, the Gilbertos, and once again, Mr. Jobim. A few more albums followed in this vein because you got to strike when the iron is hot. The iron was hot, so they made a few more albums as they parted ways because of a alleged affair between Getz and Mrs. Gilberto. Stan Getz went back to California and his jazz yearnings and academia, and the Gilbertos went their own way back to Brazil with Jobim. They all continue to make very, very exciting albums, compose wonderful songs, and do great performances for the next, 20 years or so. Somewhere around the early 90s, Antonio became ill, had some urinary tract issues, at least that's the way it's described. That could be a multiplicity of things with men that age, of course, and as a result of the surgery, he expired in 1994. But this is not before changing the world of music, classical music, Brazilian music, and jazz. He is called the father of bossa nova. And he is a personality, a musician, a performer, a composer that we really need to remember, because we can still hear his wonderful music and we can still feel his soul throughout our world. And he has been a blessing to all of us. So let's get up and dance to the music of Antonio Carlos Jobim. Thank you.